This is a lesson for all of us.
Verify, verify, verify. If it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true.
This was an international crypto scheme, and we were the first state to put out regulatory action telling this guy and his company not to do business in the state of Montana.
I think all of us just need to just take a step back when we do get that email or that text or that phone call.
This is like right out of a Bond movie.
In Montana, trust matters, but sometimes trust gets exploited. I'm Adrienna Hines, the host of Fraud Files, a podcast uncovering the scams, schemes, and fraud cases impacting real people across our state. Big promises, missing money, bad decisions, and occasionally a few "what were they thinking" moments. Each episode, we will break down how these cases started, how they unraveled, and the red flags nobody saw coming. Because when something's not adding up, somebody should probably ask questions. This is Fraud Files. Welcome to Fraud Files. I'm Adrienna Hines, and we're going to break down real fraud cases, scams, corruption, and consumer nightmares happening right here in Montana. Every episode, I'm going to be joined here with our state auditor and Montana Commissioner of Securities and Insurance, James Brown, a fourth-generation Montanan attorney, and now what I consider Montana's unofficial fraud hunter. Welcome to the studio, James.
Well, good afternoon, and it's good to be here with you. I'm excited about today's podcast. We have some really interesting information to go over, and we're going to talk about a guy that I would consider to be a real-life Bond villain.
Oh, I can't wait to get into this. So each episode, we're going to break down a separate case. And today, as James is alluding to, we have a really exciting one coming up today. But first, I want to talk about you and your office and kind of how you have signed up to be a public servant in Montana. Not only in Montana, but certainly you started at the federal level as well. But I'm just curious. First, let's start with the distinction between state auditor and the Commissioner of Securities and Insurance.
That's a distinction that many people in Montana don't understand. There really is no distinction. So I am the Montana Auditor. Under the Constitution, that is actually my title. However, because it's confusing that I don't actually audit anything, the legislature passed a statute some years ago to clarify that I'm the Commissioner of Securities and Insurance, which is more descriptive of the work we actually do. Interestingly enough, Montana's 18th state auditor was elected in November of 2024. I've been on the job about 18 months. It's been a pretty wild ride. We've done a lot of good things for Montanans, not the least of which is we've really stepped up our office's dedication and direction in identifying fraud, investigating fraud, prosecuting fraudsters.
Yeah, really excited to learn more about these different cases. What would you say has surprised you most about being in this office?
The diversity of issues that the office handles. Most people don't realize that I serve as a member of the Montana Land Board, which manages state trust lands for the benefit of schools in Montana under the Montana Constitution. I also regulate bail bondsmen and bail bonds industries in Montana. That has been a fun and exciting portion of the job. And then I would say the impact that we're able to bring as an agency in helping people when they've been the victim of either securities fraud, like wealth management type fraud, and or helping people dealing with their insurance companies and doing consumer protection that way.
I can't even imagine the breadth and depth that you have and when you explain it. And we see you and your team around Montana all the time. So maybe what's something fun that's been happening in Montana just from a personal perspective in the last few weeks?
I'll go to the professional perspective. I had the pleasure of being invited to and speaking at the Stock Growers mid-year meeting in Great Falls within the last 10 days here, which was great. Many people don't realize that at one point in my career, I did a legal work for that organization, plus I lobbied for them several sessions. And then more recently, within the last 24 to 36 hours, as state auditor, I also serve on the Montana Board of Canvassers, where in theory, the Board of Canvassers actually audits Montana elections and the results of the same to make sure that they were conducted fairly and appropriately and within law. And so yesterday in Helena, I did that duty, and we picked the precincts and the legislative races that we're going to audit for the June primary.
Ooh, when will those results be announced?
Well, we'll meet again last week of June to certify the elections in Montana. So stay tuned and look for that around the end of June.
Okay, exciting. Yeah, we just had some pretty exciting election results that just came through in this early round of elections. And, lucky for us, we're actually joined by a recent candidate who threw her hat in the ring and won her first election. So congratulations and welcome to the studio as well. Today we have Stacy Zinn joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So Stacy's the former head of the DEA from on the foreign side as well as on U.S. soil. And we are just so grateful that you can be a part of this conversation today as we kick into our first episode.
Oh, I look forward to it. I'm hearing what Jim's office, what they do as an agency. I'm floored because I've been here for, over close to 11, 12 years. And I'm like, y'all do this? Y'all do that? Okay, let's go. I want to hear this.
Well, you'll have an exciting voice to add to the conversation. And we're really proud and excited for you, especially in Yellowstone County, as it's, I almost threw my hat in the ring at one time to run for the Montana State Legislature. So kudos, hats off, and congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well, let's get into our first case. So this case we're referring to as the Forsage crypto case. And this episode and case kind of explores a cryptocurrency case. It was a scheme regulators described as a pyramid and a Ponzi-style operation disguised as decentralized finance. Jim, I'd love for you to give us the background on this case and not only what the background of the case is, but how it was discovered in Montana.
You bet. Well, as I referenced in the top of this podcast, this is literally right out of a James Bond type movie, and the bad guy in this would, of course, be a Russian national, so it all fits together. So during the Rosendale administration, when he was the auditor, some Montanans had complained to the auditor's office about a business known as Forsage, and a gentleman, I'm going to refer to him as Lado. They were engaging in a Ponzi scheme involving digital assets would be the best way to put it. This scheme that was run through the business called Forsage relied on what are known as smart contracts, which are self-executing agreements written in code and stored on digital ledgers known as blockchain. And it's basically a form of computer programming, which is essentially doing peer-to-peer cryptocurrency trading on decentralized exchanges. As I stated, I mean, you would literally have to follow a James Bond book or movie to figure out what this means. But in summation, what it means is we are living in an era where digital currencies are becoming a norm in use around the world. We are moving away from, I would say, a currency-based system for financing and moving it on to computers. And what's happening is that fraudsters have picked up on that movement of currency and how payments are going to be made for the remainder of the 21st century. And what they're doing is they're glomming on and using it as the basis for the primary method of committing fraud right now. So this gentleman, Lado, created this company, which was basically a multi-marketing scheme. He literally raised roughly 300 to 340 million in fraud through payments before being shut down by state, federal, civil, and federal criminal actions. And I'm very pleased to say that Montana was the very first jurisdiction to catch on to this guy and to order him to cease and desist from operating in the state of Montana. Real win for the people of Montana. But not only that, Montana is the nexus for going after an international criminal.
Wow. So I'm just so curious, and I know our listeners would be so curious, how was Montana involved in this? I mean, where does this enter from being this Russian James Bond scheme? Where does Montana enter the story?
Yeah, the amazing thing about these digital asset and cryptocurrency schemes is that they reach not only across state borders, they reach across international borders. And as the result of the growth of technology and the internet and this blockchain technology, you can have fraudsters situated in Kiev or North Korea or Vietnam. And what they can do is they can use their computers and technology to reach across the oceans and then try to commit fraud against Americans. And the way that it happened in Montana was under this guy's Ponzi scheme. Investors paid in crypto to join programs called X3 and X4. And then the scheme was that people earned money by getting others to join under them. Sounds like a typical pyramid scheme. And then payments flowed up the matrix of the pyramid, and then prices doubled as people bought higher and higher positions within this scheme. There was no outside revenue, no underlying business, only constant recruitment to keep it going. And so what happened was this fraud scheme targeted Montanans. They became aware, these Montanans that had joined this program, that this was a fraud, and they reported it to the state auditor's office. And my predecessors, as stated, put our investigators at the agency onto this, and we determined that this was a international crypto scheme. And as stated, we were the first state to put out regulatory action telling this guy and his company not to do business in the state of Montana. And then it went from them. This was March of 2021. And where it went from that is that the feds picked it up and the SEC picked it up. And they brought criminal action, as you can imagine, on the federal side against him. He is now an international fugitive from justice. What's really remarkable, by the way, is that he is very active on social media and lets people know where he is, which is he's in the United Arab Emirates, which has no extradition to the United States. And so he comfortably sits on his fraudulent money in the UAE and still participates in fraudulent schemes across the world, unbelievably.
Wow. So how, obviously we can all be in contact across the globe, as you mentioned, but was he touching them through social media? Was he touching them through email? Was he, what does that look like?
Yeah, it was essentially it was done through website and email contact, and he had folks that were working with him that essentially did the marketing for him. Once it became known to both domestic and international law enforcement that he was a fraudster, he actually, again, this is like right out of a Bond movie. He hired a gal out of the Ukraine to be his marketing specialist. Her name, you can't make this up, Elvira Gavrova, to promote his schemes and that sort of thing. I mean, it's literally like a Bond and then a Bond villain's gal, right? I mean, you can't make this up. And through this gal's business, the ICIJ, which deals with these international financial matters, has identified that at least $4 million in fraud has passed through her Portugal-based business since she met this guy. Incredible. The numbers are just amazing and staggering.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Stacey, with your background, especially with cryptocurrency, but certainly on foreign soil as well, what are your thoughts on this particular case?
Well, there's several points here that Jim has mentioned that my eyebrows raised. Number one is that this investigation was coming out of COVID. And so this is when law enforcement was still kind of flat-footed trying to get back into the offices and stuff. And the fact is that someone here in Montana was able to take this complaint and run with it is, I say kudos to the office, the agency. The second thing is, he was talking about the female out of Ukraine. She has a business in Portugal. The money's going through Portugal. You're going, wow, this is not just 3 countries. This is worldwide. And the fact that law enforcement took the time to start peeling back the onion, it speaks volume. But again, I'm still floored at the state of Montana is one of the first states here in the United States that actually said, hey, look at this, run with it.
Yeah, that blows me away too. Montana was way ahead of the curve on this one in terms of just being early on the case and, before it truly became a larger national story. So, in this particular case, for the Montanans who were taken advantage of in this situation, were you able to help them and assist them in this process, or was it kind of the ship had already sailed?
Yeah, by the time that we identified this individual, unfortunately for those that had been the victim of the fraud scheme, we weren't able to claw back the amount that had been stolen through this gentleman's company and through his scheme. And this is a lesson for all of us, particularly those of us living in Montana, is that it used to be when you would have financial schemes, oftentimes, of course, What would be required in order to complete the fraud would be that the intended victim would have to go down to their bank or to their investment advisor and withdraw money out of their account and then somehow ship the money, usually, through like a check or credit card payment or a wire transfer primarily. But now what's happening is because of the way that these blockchain technologies are working, is that an individual who's sitting in their home office or at their home computer, they can move money out of their investment account online into one of these digital platforms and just send the money, right? I mean, there's no human intervention now in between the fraudster and the person being defrauded. And why that is so difficult for us as regulators is there's no human element to stop it, to say, hey, what are you doing? And the second thing is, as we discussed early in the broadcast, most of these fraudsters are coming out of, well, I would say, bad actor nations, right? And so once that money gets overseas, wired through these digital wallets, as they're called, we're never going to be able to recover that money, and you'll never see it again. In fact, even those that engage in international law enforcement on an international level will tell you that this is extremely hard to recover money from. And so sadly for most Montanans, when they've been a victim of this type of fraud, they're not going to see their money back. The good news is here in Montana, we are only one of 6 states in the entire nation that does have a fund that was created by the Montana legislature to help Montanans who have been victims of securities fraud schemes or these types of growing schemes. And so we have an ability to provide some restitution to Montanans that have been harmed, but the statutory cap on the amount that you can get back, as you can imagine, is about $50,000. And the average loss that we're seeing, this is incredible, as a result of these cryptocurrency scams for Montanans is about $180,000 a pop.
Ouch.
I think Stacy can talk about the fact of, given her background and her work overseas in combating bad guys, is Stacy, you want to comment a little bit about how difficult it is to catch international bad actors and to track down money that has been stolen through bad schemes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've been seeing it's money laundering investigations, and you see, for example, where dark money can come from the United States, go into Colombia, go into these black markets, or if you go from Afghanistan to Pakistan, you're seeing illegal monies go between those 2 countries, the Hawala system. But now when we peel back the onion, you have this cryptocurrency money laundering schemes, Ponzi schemes. It's extremely hard, because think of chasing a ghost in the dark web. You see it pops up in one section, and then all of a sudden someone clicks a button and that ghost goes to another location, and poof, it disappears. And law enforcement, you have to be right there when you start seeing the money's transfers. You have to have what's called keys to be able to get into these electronic accounts. And these keys, if you're off one digit, then you're never going to get into these accounts. So it's very, very difficult for law enforcement to do these type of investigations. I hate sharing that information, but it's being very transparent. And these individuals, these nefarious actors in different foreign countries that grew up, or they're starting to grow up on the dark web, learning the ins and outs and what can be done and what can't be done, they are 10 steps ahead of law enforcement. So my comment to the public is, be careful what you ask for. If you want electronic monies, make sure you know exactly what you're doing and who you're dealing with.
You mentioned Lotto Ohotnikov. So can you tell me a little bit more about his background and kind of the investigation surrounding him?
Yeah, so this guy is a Russian national, and essentially, given his background and what we know about him is that he was trained on how to do marketing schemes in Russia and then took this to the new medium. Interestingly, the people that he targets are just not ordinary U.S. citizens. He was also involved with a gambit where he convinced Kevin Spacey, who, as you know, is the actor, to participate in a film that was funded by him. He targets folks everywhere from your everyday Joe to the most famous of the famous, and he does it all across the world. The allegations that have been leveled against him by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and the indictment that's been handed down in federal court was that he is and was operating a fraudulent crypto pyramid and Ponzi scheme that raised more than $300 million from millions of retail investors worldwide, including the United States and including in Montana. He was one of the 4 founders of this company, Forsage, and they were all based out of Russia, and namely the Republic of Georgia, but they were also operating out of Indonesia. So they are truly an international enterprise.
So there was really no kind of particular profile that he was targeting. I mean, it was anybody and everybody.
That's right. Would be referred to as what we used to know as the confidence man, right? Anybody that he could target in order to make money in what has been alleged in a fraudulent manner, he targeted them. But clearly, what we're seeing recently with his current activities, beyond those that we discovered in early 2020s, is that what he's really targeting is high-profile investors in cryptocurrencies and digital currencies across the globe. And so everyone's his target.
What would be some red flags that people need to look out for? I mean, from either of your perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, Stacy can speak to this as well as I can. The number one red flag, and we've all seen this on our computer or on our phone, right, is you get some kind of unsolicited email or unsolicited text, or you just get a random call from somebody, and what they try to do is to start the relationship with their intended victim of fraud. I mean, never answer a text that you don't recognize, never open or even respond to an email that you don't recognize, because obviously we know that that's the method that they get into your accounts. And certainly if you get a phone call, the first thing and the only thing you say anymore is hello, because of the growth of the use of AI to commit fraudulent scams, where they now have the technology, as we know, to clone your voice just based on a few words that you say. And so what these fraudsters are often trying to do is just to engage you in a conversation so they literally can get the tone and the cadence of your voice that they can use to commit fraud. And so that's the number one red flag, right? Number 2 is high pressure type tactics. Somebody's pressuring you to go down to your bank to withdraw money or get into your online account to send money. That's a huge red flag. Obviously, a legitimate financial institution or a government agency or entity is never going to try to pressure you to get into your account and immediately send money. Another red flag would be the form of payment that they're asking you to do. And we've identified 3 very suspicious forms of payment. One is if anybody ever asks you to pay something in gift cards, that's fraud, okay?
The gift card scheme,
right. Because not traceable, really. Number 2, and I've talked a lot about this with Montanans, and we've got some good press on this in conjunction with our 4th estate in Montana, is don't use the Bitcoin ATM machine that you see down at your local convenience stores. These days, the federal government, FBI, estimates that between 80% and 90% of all transactions through these machines are fraudulent or they're being used to launder money, as Stacy said. And then the third thing is that if they encourage you to take money out of your account and put it into some kind of digital wallet, that is another red flag. Okay. Stacy, you want to add anything to that?
The kidnapping scheme, and we see this a lot in South America and Mexico. We have individuals that have left that country and have migrated up here in the United States. And what we're seeing is those type of schemes are taking place. And what I mean by that is that they get the phone call that that the loved one has been kidnapped. You need to wire money. You need to put money in digital currency to be able to get these individuals back. That is a huge scheme, and we're starting to see that footprint now here in the lower 48. So that is another area to just be aware of verify. If you get that phone call a loved one and check on to see, is that other loved one out there or is there a problem?
Yeah, this is really, really good advice for our listeners. When I think about I think all of us just need to just take a step back when we do get that email or that text or that phone call or that conversation even where it's just like, is this too good to be true, right? I mean, that it's just kind of a litmus test in your own inertia, right? Is it too good to be true?
Well, if that golden egg is being presented to you, take a step back and go, is that a golden egg or is that a pink elephant? Let me do some research. I mean, if it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true.
Yeah. Yep. I couldn't agree more. Crypto is such a big buzzword nowadays, and people are really kind of getting up to speed with what that understands. And I think there's a lot of fear around that. But why does this case in particular really matter?
Yeah, this is what I talked a little bit about is just that we live in a brave new world. The 21st century, we are on the cusp of, as human beings, of changing the way that we engage in international commerce and international payment systems. We are moving away from the hard type currencies, and all the world is moving to digital type currencies. And the benefit of that, as we know, is the speed with which transactions can occur, right? Particularly in international transactions. You don't have to go down to Western Union anymore to wire money. In the time of that, you can literally just get a computer and the press of a button. So why this case matters, tech versus substance. In this case, regulators looked past the branding that they were engaging in order to carry out this Ponzi scheme and focused on the economic reality. People were sending money and expecting profits from it, which was classic securities and fraud territory. Talking about the decentralization myth. One of the reasons folks are so interested in Bitcoin and these digital currencies is because it's being marketed as a way to get rich quick. I mean, this is an old scam, right? And then Forsage itself marketed itself as, quote, unstoppable and, quote, beyond regulation. Yet there were specific individuals that coded and controlled the contracts that they purportedly had, which we knew they didn't, and took the profits, right? And then this is important because it shows how states like Montana collaborate with the federal government in identifying fraudsters and schemes and then prosecuting those individuals and trying to protect consumers. And then importantly for my office, since we are tasked with investor protection and protecting vulnerable people in Montana, this is a great case because it's a classic example of how victims can be easily duped by very sophisticated international fraudsters. We do have some great protections in Montana that give my office the ability to enhance penalties for fraudsters when vulnerable persons are involved, which would be people 60 and older. But as stated, with these types of fraud schemes, the money is long gone and these fraudsters are overseas. And so we in Montana just don't have the ability to collect the money or to go prosecute them internationally.
Earlier, we talked a little bit about the red flags that people should look for, but are there any financial habits that would help protect people from scams outside of just really paying attention to anything that's coming into your inbox, whatever that vessel that is?
Yes, if you are presented with an investment opportunity that you have never been presented with before and you're not familiar with, the best advice that I can give you is to just not engage with it. We have legitimate wealth advisors in this country. They are licensed by us, the state of Montana, and certainly regulated by the federal government. The thing that you can check, obviously, is to see if a wealth advisor or a crypto marketer is licensed with the state or feds, then you probably know that it's more legitimate than not. But the other thing is that if you're tempted to withdraw large sums of money, particularly from your retirement account, that would probably be a good indication that something is not legit and you're not in keeping with the years and years of hard work that you've built as an individual to save money and to be a prudent spender.
Well, I'm glad that Montana was at the forefront of this particular case and that obviously we saved many other Montanans for falling for this because it's in a MLM scheme like this where, you kind of have to get your friends underneath you. Boy, that could have went haywire in a whole other subset. So Congratulations on making sure that Montanans are aware of this. So what should people do if they ever find themselves in the shoes of, of these particular Montanans? What do they need to do? Who can they reach out to? Who can they call for help?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I would just say up front that when I became state auditor, I made it a priority for our agency to engage in a public information campaign across the Treasure State to inform people as to the types of schemes that are out there, what to be looking for, the red flags, in order that folks here don't become victims in the first instance. That's the very best outcome that we can do. I'm very pleased to say the Montana legislature gave me an additional $100,000 in spending authority right at the beginning of my term so that we could send folks out across the state to do these education programs. As a result of that, I've been able to bring on 2 staff that essentially the way I organize my office, look at the congressional districts here in Montana, the 2 congressional districts, and they're assigned to the congressional district and they're responsible for going out and doing community presentations. If, unfortunately, Montana is the victim of a fraud scheme, we, the state auditor's office, are the agency that is responsible for being the tip of the spear for fraud reporting. We have what's known as a FAST team, which is a group of specialized persons within our agency that are tasked with taking in all reports of fraud or fraud schemes and investigating them within 72 hours, and then determining whether we have jurisdiction or another state agency or the feds have jurisdiction. And what we'll do is if we don't have jurisdiction, we'll refer out. But fraud only flourishes in silence. And so what we encourage every Montanan, including those that are listening to this podcast, to do is to reach out to our office, the state auditor's office. You can do it in 2 ways. You can go through our website, which is csimt.gov, csimt.gov, or you can call our main line, 406-444-2040, 406-444-2040. Again, these fraudsters will only prevail and only win if good people who have been harmed stay silent and don't report it. Please report any suspicious activity to us so that we can investigate and prosecute it.
Well, thank you so much. I think Montanans now have the information. They understand what has happened in the past, and let's prevent this moving forward. I'm Adrienna Hines. This has been Fraud Files with State Auditor James Brown. Remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
The Office of the State Auditor, Commissioner of Securities and Insurance, is tasked with protecting and advocating for Montana consumers, investigating and prosecuting bad actors, informing the public through education and outreach, and promoting business growth and capital formation in the Treasure State. For more information or to contact the Commissioner's office, visit csimt.gov or call 406-444-2040.